It's a little after 6 in the morning, and the coffee is still too hot to drink. So I'm standing on the back step holding the cup with both hands, the way I have on August mornings for more years than I care to count. The air is already thick. You can feel the day coming. And there it is again, that patch by the mailbox, shaped a little like a boot print, about the size of a card table, pale brown, crisp at the edges, sitting right in the middle of grass that's still holding on. I've watered that patch. My friends, I have watered that patch like it owed me money. Every evening for 2 weeks one summer, I dragged the hose out there and stood in the dark until the mosquitoes ran me off. And it stayed brown. I want to tell you something this morning that took me an embarrassing number of years to understand. That patch wasn't thirsty. It was something else entirely. And the day I finally figured out what was going on under there, I didn't need a bigger sprinkler or a stronger fertilizer. I needed a coffee cup full of water and about 30 seconds. That's it. That's the whole test. And I'm going to show it to you today, because I think a great many of you have a patch just like mine. And I think a great many of you have been blaming yourselves for it. You haven't been doing it wrong. You've just been answering the wrong question. That's the sort of thing we do here at Rooted in Grace. We slow down, we look closely, and we work with the land instead of fighting it. Why August is the hardest month for grass. Now, before we get to the cup, I want you to understand what August actually is for a lawn. Because if you don't understand that, everything else we talk about today will just be a trick, and I'm not interested in tricks. I'm interested in you understanding your own yard. So here's the honest picture. By the time August rolls around, the grass in your yard has been working since March. Think about that. 5 straight months of growing, getting cut, growing again, getting cut again. Every single week. If somebody did that to you, you'd be tired too. And now, at the exact moment the grass is most worn out, we hand it the hardest weather of the year. The soil is hot. Some afternoons the ground surface is hotter than the air. Water leaves faster than it arrives. Now, what happens next depends on what kind of grass you've got. And this matters more than most folks realize. If you're up north, or anywhere in that big middle band of the country, you're likely growing what we call cool season grass, tall fescue, Kentucky bluegrass, ryegrass. These are grasses that love spring and fall and honestly just want to survive summer. And when it gets hot and dry enough, they do something remarkable. They quit. Not permanently. They pull their resources down into the crown, that little growing point right at the soil line, and they go dormant. They turn tan. They stop growing. To your eye, they look dead. They are not dead. They are sleeping. And they are sleeping on purpose. Because that's how their ancestors survived summers long before any of us had a garden hose. Now, if you're down south, you're probably growing warm season grass. Bermuda, zoysia, Stay Augustine, centipede. Those grasses actually love this heat. August is their season. But they're growing hard, which means they're spending hard, and they'll run themselves down if the soil underneath them can't keep up. Either way, north or south, here's the thing that matters. August is not the month to push a lawn. August is the month to take care of one. And that distinction is where nearly all the trouble comes from. The 3 mistakes we make out of fear. Because a brown lawn is upsetting. It just is. You walk out there and it looks like something died on your watch, and nobody likes that feeling, particularly if you take pride in your place. So we panic. And panic, my friends, makes us do things that feel productive and are actually harmful. I want to name 3 of them, and I want to name them gently, because I have personally done all 3. The first one is fertilizer, specifically, the heavy, fast-acting nitrogen kind, the bag that promises a green lawn in 5 days. And I understand the appeal completely. The lawn looks weak, so you feed it. That's what you'd do for anything else you loved. But here's what's actually happening. That quick nitrogen tells the grass to build new leaves, right now, in the worst heat of the year. And new leaves are thin, tender, full of water, and expensive to maintain. Meanwhile, the roots down below are already struggling to find moisture. So you've just asked a tired plant to take on a second job. Extension specialists have documented this for decades. High rates of nitrogen at the wrong time push out soft growth that leaves the lawn more vulnerable, not less. You get burnt leaf tips. You get more disease pressure. You get a lawn that looks a little greener for about 9 days and then looks worse than when you started. The second mistake is the one I made with that patch by the mailbox. A little water. Every single day. 15 minutes each evening. It feels attentive. It feels like devotion. And it teaches your grass a terrible lesson. Because when water only ever arrives in the top inch of soil, the roots have no reason to go looking any deeper. Why would they? Everything they need is right there at the surface. So you end up with a shallow, lazy root system that's completely dependent on you showing up every evening. And the first weekend you go visit the grandkids, that lawn falls apart. I did that for years. I thought I was being a good caretaker. I was building a lawn that couldn't stand on its own. The third one is mowing too short. And this is usually done with the best intentions, too. Folks think, if I cut it shorter, I'll have to mow less often. Or they just like that tidy, close-cropped look. But grass blades are how the plant makes its food, and they're also the shade that keeps the soil underneath from cooking. Cut them short in August and you've done two things at once. You've reduced the plant's ability to feed itself, and you've pulled the roof off the soil. Bare hot soil dries out faster, the roots down in it start to die back, and every weed seed in your yard suddenly has an open invitation. All three of those mistakes come from the same place: fear. The lawn looks bad, we feel responsible, and we reach for something forceful. But a lawn in August doesn't need force, it needs somebody who understands what it's actually going through. The cup of water test. So let's get to the cup of water, because this is the part that changed everything for me, and I suspect it's going to change a few things for you. Here's what I want you to do. Either this morning or this evening when it's cooler. Find your worst brown patch. Go on out there with an ordinary cup of water, not a hose, just a cup, and pour it slowly, right in the middle of that patch. Now watch. Just watch. If that water disappears into the ground within a few seconds, the way water is supposed to, then your problem is something else, and we'll talk about what. But if you see something different, if those drops sit up on top of the soil like beads of mercury, if they roll sideways and run off toward the edges, if you count to 20, to 30, and that water is still sitting there refusing to go in, then, my friends, you have just found the answer. Your lawn isn't thirsty. Your soil has turned waterproof. Why soil turns waterproof? I know how that sounds. It sounded strange to me too. Soil is supposed to absorb water. That's practically the definition of dirt. But here's what happens. And once you see it, you can't unsee it. When soil dries out severely, and stays dried out, the organic material in it, the decaying roots and old leaves and the natural residues left behind by soil microbes, those things leave behind a coating on the individual soil particles, a waxy film, microscopically thin. And wax and water, as you know from every kitchen you've ever stood in, do not get along. So now you've got soil where every particle is wearing a tiny raincoat. You pour water on it, and instead of soaking in, the water beads up, exactly the way rain beads up on a freshly waxed car hood, exactly the way a drop of water sits up on a candle. The turf researchers have a name for this. They call it soil water repellency, and when it shows up as those maddening isolated patches, they call it localized dry spot. And here's the cruel part, the part that had me out there in the dark fighting mosquitoes. The more you water it, the worse the problem looks, because the water you're adding is running off that patch and going into the healthy soil around it. So the patch stays brown while the ring around it gets soggy, and you stand there thinking you must be doing something wrong. You were doing everything right. You were just pouring water onto a surface that had, quietly and without telling anybody, stopped being able to accept it. 1935, the day the sky went dark over the Capitol. Now I want to tell you a story, because this is not a new discovery, and the people who learned it first, learned it the hard way. In the spring of 1935, a soil scientist named Hugh Hammond Bennett sat down in front of a Senate committee in Washington. Bennett had spent his career trying to get anybody in power to care about dirt. Nobody did. There was an official position, on the record from the Bureau of Soils, that soil was indestructible, that you simply could not use it up. Bennett knew better. He'd walked the fields. He'd seen what happened when land was stripped bare and left to bake. And that day, he knew something else. He knew a dust storm was moving east out of the Great Plains, and he knew roughly when it would arrive. So he talked. He stretched that testimony out. He kept those senators in their seats. And at a certain point in the afternoon, the light coming through the windows started to change. It went yellow, then brown. Bennett stopped and asked the committee members to come look outside. The sky over the United States Capitol had gone dark with topsoil from 1,000 miles away. On the 27th of April, 1935, Congress passed the Soil Conservation Act, and the Soil Conservation Service was born. That agency is still with us today, under a different name. And the lesson those farmers paid so dearly for is the same lesson sitting in your front yard this morning. Soil that gets stripped bare and baked stops behaving like soil. It sheds water instead of drinking it. It blows away instead of holding on. Now, your yard is not the Dust Bowl, not remotely, but it is the same principle, in miniature, right there by your mailbox. The $10 fix, and how to use it safely. Which brings us to what you can actually do about it, this weekend, for less than the cost of lunch. What you're looking for is called a wetting agent. You might also see it called a soil surfactant. You can find it at most garden centers or order it online. And the hose-end bottles generally run somewhere around $10 to $15 and will treat an average yard. And here is what it actually does. In plain language, a wetting agent is a molecule with a split personality. One end of it gets along with water. The other end gets along with wax and oil. So when you apply it, that molecule grabs the waxy coating on your soil particles with one hand and grabs the water with the other, and it holds them together long enough for the water to soak in. It builds a little bridge. That's all it is. It doesn't feed anything. It doesn't force growth. It just reopens a door that got stuck shut. An honest word about the evidence. Now let me be straight with you about the evidence here, because I would rather you trust me than be impressed by me. The most rigorous research on wetting agents has been done on golf course putting greens, which are built on deep sand and suffer from this problem worse than anybody. In those trials, the results are clear. Test plots treated with wetting agents held more soil moisture and grew better roots than the untreated plots right beside them. Researchers at the Arkansas Agricultural Experiment Station described these products as building a bridge between the water-repellent coating on the soil particles and the water in the root zone. That's real, measured, published work. What I cannot tell you is that every home lawn in America has this problem, because it isn't true. Lawns on heavy clay in a wet climate often don't. That's exactly why the cup test comes first. Don't take my word for it, and don't spend a dime until your own yard has shown you the answer. Pour the cup. Let the ground tell you. If it beads, treat it. If it soaks right in, save your money, because your problem is something else, and we'll cover those in a minute. When you do treat it, here's how to do it well. Apply in the early morning or the evening, never in the middle of a hot afternoon. Follow the label rate exactly, and I mean exactly. More is not better here. More is just more, and it can make things worse. Water it in afterward with a good deep soaking, because the wetting agent is a doorway, not a delivery. It opens the soil, and then plain water has to actually walk through. Most products hold up for several weeks, so twice through August is usually plenty. And do me a favor, treat one small area first, a few square feet, somewhere out of sight. Wait 3 or 4 days, look at it, then do the rest. That habit will serve you for the rest of your gardening life, not just today. A word on safety, and I'll keep it short. Don't mix a wetting agent in with anything else. Not fertilizer, not weed killer, not some other bottle from the shelf. One thing at a time, in plain water, the way the label says. Why not just use dish soap? Now, I know some of you are already thinking it, so let's talk about it. Somebody in the comments is going to say, why buy anything at all? Just put a squirt of dish soap in the sprayer. Soap's a surfactant too. And you're not wrong about the chemistry. Soap is a surfactant. That much is true. But I'm not going to recommend it to you, and here's why. Dish soaps are built to strip grease off a plate. They're not gentle. They vary enormously from bottle to bottle. And the same stripping action that cleans your skillet can strip the protective waxy layer right off your grass blades, which in August is the last thing that grass needs. The advice you find online for it is all over the map, and none of it comes from a university. So if you want to experiment on a hidden corner of your own yard, that's your business, and I'd never scold you for it. But I won't put it in a video and call it a method. I'd rather send you to the $10 bottle that was actually designed for this. The bottles that promise microbes. While we're being honest with each other, let me mention something else. And I mean this kindly, because I've bought some of these bottles myself. There is a whole shelf at the garden center of things that promise to wake up your soil. Humic acid, molasses concentrates, various sweet-smelling liquids that talk a great deal about microbes, and I want to be fair to them. They're not going to hurt your lawn. If you've got some and you enjoy using it, use it in good health. But I looked hard at what the research actually says, and I'd be doing you a disservice if I dressed it up. On established home lawns, the honest answer from the extension side is that these products haven't been shown to deliver much, largely because mature lawn soil already contains those substances naturally. One review out of Michigan State noted that results on turf have been highly variable. And Dr. Linda Chalker-Scott at Washington State, who has spent a career separating garden fact from garden folklore, has pushed back firmly on the molasses claims in particular. So here's the gentle truth. Those bottles are feeding something that, in most yards, is already fed. The wetting agent is doing something completely different. It's fixing a door that's stuck. And a stuck door is worth $10. Raise your mower. Now. The bottle handles the emergency. But I don't want you back here next August with the same brown boot print by the mailbox. So let's talk about why that soil dried out hard enough to turn waterproof in the first place. Because that part is free. 3 things. And none of them cost you anything but a change of habit. The first is the simplest and the most powerful. Raise your mower. If you're growing cool season grass, put that deck up to 3.5 or 4 inches and leave it there through the heat. Taller blades shade the soil. Shaded soil stays cooler and holds moisture longer. Cooler, moister soil doesn't bake into that waxy state. It really is that direct. The height of your mower deck is, quietly, one of the most important decisions you make all summer, and it's free. Stop bagging your clippings. The second is to stop bagging your clippings. I know some of you have bagged for 40 years and it feels like tidiness itself. But hear me out, because the numbers here surprised me when I first read them. Grass clippings are mostly water and easily broken down material, and they decompose fast. Extension research shows that returning them supplies up to a quarter of your lawn's entire fertilizer needs. Work out of Oregon State found that returning clippings with a mulching mower let them cut fertilizer rates nearly in half. And it's quick. One study found the nitrogen from those clippings was taken up into new growth in under a week. Under a week. There's free fertilizer lying on your lawn every Saturday, and most of us rake it into a bag and set it at the curb. Now, the objection I always hear is thatch. Doesn't leaving clippings build up thatch? It's a reasonable worry, and the answer is a clean no. Researchers settled this a long time ago. Thatch comes from stems, shoots, and roots, not from clippings. The University of Minnesota states it plainly, that clippings break down rapidly and do not accumulate. So you can let that particular worry go. And the clippings do one more thing that matters for our purposes today. They act as a thin mulch on the soil surface. They shade it. They slow evaporation. They are, in a very small way, doing exactly what Hugh Bennett spent his life begging farmers to do. Keep something over the soil. Water deep, not often. The third habit is how you water. Deep and rare, instead of shallow and often. Rather than 15 minutes every evening, give that lawn a long, slow soak once or twice a week, early in the morning. You want the water going down several inches, not just wetting the surface. And here's how you check it without any special equipment. Take an ordinary long screwdriver out with you after you water. Push it into the soil. If it slides in easily 6 inches, you've watered deep enough. If it stops after 2 inches, you haven't. That screwdriver has told me more truth about my yard than any gadget I ever bought. Deep watering pulls the roots downward, because that's where the moisture is. Deeper roots mean a lawn that can carry itself through a dry spell without you standing over it. Those 3 habits, taller mowing, returned clippings, deep watering, they're the reason your grandmother's lawn survived summers with no sprinkler system and no bags of anything. She wasn't doing less than us. She was doing the right things and then leaving the grass alone. That's the whole idea behind Rooted in Grace, if you'd like it in one sentence. Do the few right things, and then trust the season. Dormant or dead, the 5-second tug test. Now, before you treat anything, I want to make sure you're not treating a lawn that's simply asleep. This matters, because half the brown lawns in August aren't in trouble at all. Here's the test, and it takes 5 seconds. Walk out to a brown area, take a good pinch of grass between your fingers, and give it a firm tug. If it resists, if you can feel it anchored down there, that grass is dormant, and it is fine. It's waiting for the weather to turn, and it will green back up in the fall on its own schedule, not yours. If the whole clump comes away in your hand with no resistance at all, roots and everything, then that spot has actually died and you'll want to reseed it come fall. You can also part the grass right at the soil line and look at the crown, that little base where the blades meet the ground. If there's any white or pale green firmness in there, there's life. And I'll tell you, my friends, that little test has saved me a great deal of money and a great deal of unnecessary worry over the years. There is something in it worth carrying beyond the yard, too. The garden keeps teaching me the same lesson and I keep needing to hear it. Sometimes the thing that looks finished is only resting. Sometimes what a living thing needs is not more of your effort, but more of your patience. I've been on both sides of that one. You're week by week August. So let me give you the rest of August, week by week, and then I'll let you get on with your morning. This week, do the cup test. That's the whole assignment. Find your worst patch, pour the cup, count to 30. If it beads and refuses, get a wetting agent and treat that area, following the label. And whether it beads or not, raise your mower deck today and take the bag off. Those two cost nothing and help everything. Next week, water deep. One good long soak, early morning. Check yourself with the screwdriver. Don't fertilize. Don't panic about brown. Just look at the lawn and let it tell you things. The week after, if you treated a patch, treat it once more. Look at the areas around it. If the cup test now soaks in where it used to bead, you fixed something real, and I'd love to hear about it. And then, at the very end of the month, as the nights finally start cooling off, that's when you do the thing that keeps this from happening again. A thin top dressing of compost. The long answer? A 1/4 inch of compost. Now let me be specific, because this is one where the details genuinely matter. You want a 1/4 of an inch. That's it. A 1/4 inch. Spread out and raked in so it settles down among the grass rather than sitting on top of it. Penn State's guidance is that thin layer worked into the turf. And a University of California trial tested this directly at different depths. The 1/4 inch treatment gave the best turf quality of the lot. The 1/2 inch and 1 inch treatments smothered the grass, and the quality stayed poor for months afterward. So more is not generous here. More is burial. A 1/4 inch. Compost is the long answer to the waterproof soil problem. Because organic matter is what lets soil hold moisture in the first place. Clemson's Horticulture Center notes that top dressing improves recovery, helps manage thatch through microbial activity, and can indirectly reduce disease. It's slow. You won't see it this month. But do it 2 or 3 years running and you will genuinely stop having this conversation with your mailbox. The bottle reopens the door for this summer. The compost is so that next summer, the door was never stuck. And late August into early September, right as you're spreading that compost, is also the very best window of the entire year to overseed a cool season lawn. That's a whole conversation of its own, and I've got one coming for you on it. Mistakes to avoid, and your questions. A few last cautions, and these are the ones I see folks stumble over every year. Please don't spray broadleaf weed killer in this heat. Stressed grass and hot weather make for a bad outcome, and you can damage the good grass along with the weeds. The dandelions have waited this long. Let them wait until fall, when the treatment works better anyway. Please don't spread lime unless a soil test told you to. Lime is not a tonic, it's a specific correction for a specific problem, and applying it blindly can push your soil the wrong direction and lock up nutrients your grass needs. Your county extension office will test your soil for a very modest fee, and it's some of the best money in all of gardening. And please don't give up on a brown patch in August. Most of them come back, not because you rescued them, but because September arrives and the grass remembers what to do. A few questions I get every year, quickly. What if I have new grass, planted this spring? Then be gentler with all of this. Young roots are shallow by nature, so keep the soil consistently moist rather than going to deep and rare right away. And skip the wetting agent unless the cup test is truly dramatic. What about severe drought or watering restrictions where you live? Then let the cool season grass go dormant and stop fighting it. A dormant lawn can hold on for quite a while. Give it a light drink every 2 or 3 weeks to keep the crowns alive, mow high, and wait for fall. That's not failure. That's exactly what the grass evolved to do. And what if the water soaks in fine, but you've still got brown patches? Then look at grubs, at fungus, at a sprinkler head that's aimed at the driveway, or at a dog that's found a favorite spot. Pull back a corner of the turf and see whether it lifts like carpet, because that's a grub sign. And take a look for anything unusual in the morning dew. Different problems, different answers. Tell me about your grandmother's lawn. So here's everything, in one breath. August isn't the month to push your lawn. It's the month to take care of it. Get your mower deck up, leave the clippings where they fall, water deep instead of often, and before you spend another evening dragging the hose, go pour 1 cup of water on your worst brown patch and watch what it does. If that water beads up and runs off, you've found your answer. And a $10 bottle will open that door back up. And when the nights cool off, put down a 1/4 inch of compost so that door stays open for good. That's it. That's the whole thing. No $40 bag, no miracle in a jug, just a cup of water and the willingness to look. Now, I'd like to ask you something. And I ask because I honestly want to know. Tell me about the lawn you grew up around. Your mother's yard? Your grandfather's? The one you ran across barefoot when you were 7 years old? Because most of those places had no irrigation system, no soil test, no shelf of bottles in the garage. And a great many of them were beautiful anyway. What did those folks do? Did somebody in your family have a rule about when to mow? Or a way of reading the weather? Or some piece of advice that got handed down and that you still catch yourself following? Put it in the comments. I read them, and I learn from them, and I'll be honest with you, some of the best things I know about growing came from a comment section rather than a book. And tell me where you are, too. Your state, or just your part of the country. Whether you're on clay or sand, it helps me answer you properly, and it helps your neighbors find each other down there. Thank you for spending a piece of your morning with me. Go pour the cup. Look at what your own ground is telling you. And then, my friends, go pour yourself something better, and sit down for a minute before the heat comes on. The lawn will still be there. It's more patient than we are. From all of us here at Rooted in Grace, take good care of yourselves and stay rooted through every season.